Thank you. Well, two questions you have asked, which are very critical. I have always maintained the position. I've expressed that position privately and publicly, which is that after elections, especially after the last presidential election, all governors, irrespective of the way we feel about that election, should work and support the president and the federal government on two critical areas along the lines of your question. One, on the issues of security, national security, and law and order. And the second one, on the economy. Because we have always known, I have always known, that these times will be very trying. Because we have seen a steady decline of our revenues for the past 1.5 years. It's possible that the APC that was in opposition didn't see that coming. So I've made this call over and over. What I've seen is an insufficient attention by the federal team, the team around the president. For example, they seem to have taken their eyes off the economy. They seem to have taken their eyes off these core national security imperatives. And they are now focusing, instead of focusing on the economy and on national security challenges, they are focusing more on political conquests and expansion of the sphere of authority of their party and all the type of intrigues going on even within their party. I am of the view that the president does not have the best of honest advice. I'm of the view that the team around the president is not expansive and broad enough. I am seeing a lot of unnecessary restriction. I'm seeing an unnecessary concern about political ego. This country, this president took over the reins of authority in this country at a time that called for all hands being on deck. This is when we should be forming national consensus. Take, for example, more people have died at the hands of Boko Haram from when this president took over, between when the president took over till date, than for a relative period in the last administration. So what it means is that, contrary to the public proclamations, what it means is that the Boko Haram threat still remains a serious one, serious challenge. Our men and women in uniform are doing their best, and we must all give them support. But what it means is that the national security team needs to have their eyes on the national security ball. And when you tie that with the possibility of the consequences that this economic downturn will have in this country, this year, 2016, and going forward, I don't see what time the team around the president should be spending on political conquest as they are doing, deploying national assets and resources in areas that is not necessary. What is necessary is for consensus to be formed on the economy. Now, with Iran pumping more, getting fully involved in oil trade again, we are going to have more glut in the oil market with attendant reduction in the international price of crude. That is a serious matter because it will have an impact on even the internal law and order situation. Because every hungry man is an angry man. States are not going to be able to pay salaries, including the federal government. So, with the way it is, how are you sure you'll be able to pay even the salaries of your soldiers? and your law enforcement officials and your judicial personnel and all the critical workers that you need in place to keep our nation going. These are the challenges facing the country. I'm surprised, quite frankly, I'm very, very surprised and shocked that in spite of all the challenges, what we see is that people are more interested in battles, interested in fights and fights and fights, instead of making friends and building national consensus. Because my view is after elections, however you feel about candidates and parties, after elections, you address the problems of the country and the problems of the state and move forward. We build consensus. Sadly, that's not happening. Now, so back to your, because I'm very concerned, therefore, about the way the country is going in the area of security, not just in the Niger Delta. And in the Niger Delta, I don't think that the approach of being selective law enforcement, selective enforcement of order, selective deployment of military and security personnel is the solution. No. We should just draw a line and say no to criminality and violence and irresponsible criminal conduct. That's not happening. There are people who killed, people who have armed, who have been allowed to arm others, adding to our security situation right in Bayelsa and in the Niger Delta. And the security agencies know it. The APC leadership and the federal government know them. They know them. And they don't care. So we're addressing Boko Haram. You are now opening in a needless political war. Under that, you are now allowing violent elements, you brought them in, supported them with all elements of state power, gave them all the money, gave them security cover, and they have compromised state security, national security. These are the challenges going on. As you rightly said, if in the course of campaigning for an election, you equip young people, militants, who told you after the elections they will give you back those arms? There are different accounts as to how Boko Haram started. And one account is very similar to this. And I kept shouting. I kept raising the alarm. And the right thing for is, even now, it's not late. It's for the security agencies to pick up these guys, cause a massive investigation, and then show the supremacy of the states. Because any society where non-state actors have a share, they partake in sharing the instruments of violence and coercion, that's a failing state, it's a failed state. And we should not allow that. My government stands for peace and law and order and security. They have compounded our challenges, even in spite of the dwindling reform, because enforcing the law is also very expensive. But we're going to get that done. All I'm asking is cooperation and professionalism on the part of the federal agencies. No governor controls the instruments of authority, of enforcing laws. Unfortunately, when people talk about state police, they misunderstand it. So you are in your state and they send you the commissioner of police one after the other every week to compromise this. And there's nothing you can do. You've got to take them in and work with them. So I'm calling for understanding and for support from the federal government so that we can again keep Bayelsa and the Niger Delta safe again. You talked about the economic issue, which is very real. The good thing in Bayelsa is that we have spent the first term laying the foundation. Schools and schools and schools. Completed some 90%. We need to build, we need to complete them. Because the investment has already been made. Most of the road infrastructure has been made. Like the airport is now 70%. So the hard decision has been taken The difficult investment has already been made. So we just need to monitor it and follow through. That's the good thing. But then you have challenges of meeting the recurrent obligations and of expanding social security that I've been doing on for the aged, paying school fees for WAEC, forms, GC, NECO, and all those people, and all those things will be, scholarships will now unfortunately be affected. But gentlemen, let's get it clear, our country is in a very difficult financial, economic situation. Let me start with the king. I will be visiting the king, I think later, if not today, tomorrow. But I'm getting periodic reports about updates about him. It's unfortunate that we are in the country. No. They are stabilizing him. As I said earlier, he has a bullet lodged right in his brain. And the guys who shot him are still there, parading, controlling their militant territories, protected by agents of the state. Why? Because they are not APC. Because they are not PDP. They are supporting the APC and their candidates. So this is what has been allowed to happen. So when I read about Tompolo's statement that it was elements that were sent to blow up that pipeline, people should not take it lightly. In order to incriminate him, people should not take that lightly. They need to investigate that. Well, what I've seen is a discrimination in the law enforcement approach, which I talked about. There are now APC militants and then others. Whether it is raids in Rivers State, whether it is raids in Bayelsa or in Delta, I think the right thing is to go after the right people and all of them. So I'm concerned about the condition of the Paramabri king. I receive very regular updates. The medical team briefs me regularly. They are stabilizing him here in Abuja. A neurosurgeon and his team are handling it, and I've been told that once they stabilize him a little bit, then they'll be able to conclude their work, and if their work is not good enough, then we'll have no option than to work with the family to send him abroad. It's a very terrible situation, but those who brought that about are going about freely. They're not arrested because they're APC. And then, right on the cases of kidnapping, I've always treated these as crimes in their own rights. That's why immediately they occurred, I said nobody should read any motives to it. If it were the other side, they would have been screaming everywhere, pointing accusing fingers. But at our level, with what we know, we feel we should allow the agencies, the security people to do their work. I know that some work is going on. My position has never changed even before I became governor. My position is that we don't negotiate with kidnappers. Even though my own younger sister has spent almost a month now in captivity, I treat it as a crime. I'm affected equally as governor once anybody is kidnapped, whether you are my blood relation or you are, once you are a citizen of Nigeria in Bayelsa, or you are a human being in Bayelsa, and this kind of thing happens to you, I'm equally affected. So that's the way I look at it. We are very concerned, but I know that agencies are working. Our thoughts and our prayers have continued to be with them and others like them. It's not just going on in Bayelsa, it's also happening in other states in the country. But, kidnapping is bad, it's terrible, and we condemn it, and we hope that in no distant time they will regain their freedom and live their normal lives with their families. The gentleman asks of the unity of the Ijaw nation. The Ijaw nation is united. Yes, a contest amongst brothers is bound to generate some divisions even in the family. But there are no sharp divisions as such. He had his own party men and some supporters, but the bulk of our people, majority of our people, unflinching in their support for me. Not just in Bayelsa, across the Niger Delta states, across the South-South. You talked about the unity of the John Nation. The John Nation is united. There are some efforts some people are making using various levels of federal power to get a chunk of support for themselves. I just wish them well and advise that they use proper legitimate means in doing so. Now that elections are over, we are looking ahead. We are looking at reconciling everybody. I've offered a hand of fellowship to Chief Silva and the APC, and I hope that superior reason will prevail over their. I see their reaction after losing, a reaction that they wanted to go to court as a reaction born out of shock, because they had everything. They thought they had everything. Resources, support from every quarter, but they didn't have God, they didn't have the people by themselves. And they met a tactically superior team. And so they were completely routed. But that's the nature of politics. You win today, you lose tomorrow, you lose today, you prepare to win tomorrow. So I hope that they take my invitation to join me to work for peace, to work for security and development of our people. And then the last one you asked was whether I'm surprised. Well, democratic standards differ. I don't know the briefing that he has. And quite frankly, I don't know whose interests it is serving. Whoever has made it that the president has not followed the traditions of his predecessors in congratulating a governor, especially a governor going through a seriously contested election like this against his party and winning in spite of all odds. If I were advising this president, that is the governor I would say should not waste time in congratulating him, because the president remains leader of the nation. It's not just a partisan leader, it's a leader of the whole country. He's in some senses the custodian of our democracy, custodian of the nation's sovereignty, you know, holding it on behalf of all of us. And I believe that was the tradition Chief Obasanjo followed, tradition that the late Yaradua followed, tradition that Dr. Jonathan also inherited and followed dutifully. They never failed to congratulate a governor who won a contest. Even if their party and their candidates complained or disagreed, even if their candidates and their parties went to court, in the interest of the nation and our democracy, they always congratulated. But I don't know the briefing that the president has. And like I said, I don't think that that served the interest of the president himself. I think quite frankly that he should be advised to project himself more as a democratic leader. And that was an opportunity they've made. But it's not too late. Still not too late.
He's yet to congratulate.
He's yet to congratulate me, but it is not too late. It is not too late. I believe that the president is the leader of the nation. And leadership has its own responsibilities. This is one of them. To reassure our people about the virility of our democracy. Yes, it's a human system. It can't be perfect. And particularly when you look at the way and manner his own election came, PDP could have gone to court. Dr. Jonathan himself could have challenged it. There were all kinds of issues about the votes that were shown down from everywhere. Yet, he was congratulated even before the end of collation. That's a major milestone for our democracy. It's not a personal achievement, but a good step for our country, a good step for our democracy. And I think that he missed an opportunity, but maybe he's delaying it. I believe the president means well. Sometimes I have doubt about the quality of advice from his team. I think they're too restricted. But I think that the right thing will be done.
Thank you very much.
But I've received so many congratulations from across the country, and I'm happy with that.
I don't have somebody saying
Yeah.
Your Excellency, big congratulations.